The brand new Japanese tank destroyer is finally here for World of Tanks console, and we're going to have a look at what this thing can actually do in the game and whether it is worth actually grinding all the way to season rank 100 for the actual season pass, which you can pick up in the store or in the season pass tab for 2,000 gold. This is not part of the ultimate season pass, and of course we'll be looking at the ultimate season pass tank in some videos coming up soon. So if you're wanting to see what the Object 490 Topol is, then make sure that you are subscribed and you check out the videos that will be coming up soon. So without further ado, the Kari, the 500 alpha damage Japanese tank destroyer that can go 40 kilometers an hour and actually feels relatively competitive. That is what today's video is all about. So, of course, what is this tank going to be able to do in your games if you decide to actually play this thing? Well, it has a pretty decent gun with great accuracy, great aim time for the alpha damage it has. It has 7 degrees of gun depression, which, considering the sheer size of this vehicle, it actually works really well, because essentially you can use ridge lines by going above the ridge line and firing over the top of it using 7 degrees, so you can fire at people on the other side. And yeah, definitely feels really nice to play when it comes to the gun depression. You don't feel limited in that regard, but there are a few limitations, one of them being the armor model right here. You can see that it relies on a pretty flat frontal plate on this vehicle. You see that it is 300mm thick either side of the actual gun, which can be penned of course by tier 10s with premium ammunition, but of course then you get the 220mm of frontal superstructure on the top of the vehicle, which you can see here highlighted in red. This is actually pretty okay for if you're playing up against lower tier vehicles, but as soon as you come up against tier 8s, pretty much everyone is going to be able to pen you, and if they do fire premium ammunition, it's a guaranteed pen through either side of those cheeks. You then have a 115mm upper plate, which is made of garbage and Swiss cheese, so you're basically going through this every single day of the week. If you're playing up against this thing, this is kind of one of the key weak points, alongside a absolutely atrocious lower plate made of 17mm of basically paper, and so you're going straight through that as well. So the frontal armor of this thing, not good at all. The side armor is an even worse story, having 50mm of side armor on the side of both the top of the vehicle, the superstructure, or of course behind the tracks of the vehicle, also 50mm. So as soon as you expose any level of the side of your tank, you're getting penned every single time. So don't try and kind of over wiggle, because you'll just get penned through the tracks, which is a big pain of playing a non-turreted tank. And of course this one definitely doesn't do it very well. Its tracks don't even overhang the hull armor very much either. So with that being said, of course there are some benefits, which is that it does get that alpha damage. The one good thing as well is that you can combine a decent view range with this tank of 486 meters with a still concealment that is actually relatively good considering how big this tank is. 260 meters still concealment, allowing you to both spot opponents and get assistance damage, as well as be able to remain undetected when you are firing. And in order to do that, the way in which we've set up the vehicle is to go with advanced concealment, advanced optics, and advanced loader. Now, the reason why we've gone optics and concealment is down to the fact that we want to be able to essentially remain undetected. The whole point with this tank is you don't want to get spotted, because when you do get punished quite hard, and so that's kind of how we've run it. Of course, advanced loader for the increased DPM, because the DPM, although, yeah, you have high alpha, is not particularly amazing. 2,875 DPM, which when you consider that we've got all of the perks that can boost up your reload speed, yeah, it's not particularly the best in the world, and you're certainly going to be losing out to a lot of the other tank destroyers at tier 8. But the whole point is that you can be a little bit more aggressive whilst also playing that kind of supporting role from further back as well at the same time. So it's quite flexible in the way that you can play it when you do decide to jump in this tank. And of course, when you are using your gun depression over ridgeline, the upper plate, and of course the upper superstructure armor can also be able to be bouncing rounds because of the fact that you're angled upwards, which increases the angle of the armor and therefore the effective armor that this tank gets. So that's just another addition that you can use to your advantage. But of course, then you do have some options that you could potentially swap out. I would potentially maybe swap out advanced concealment to be able to pick up ventilation if you're interested in having a bit more of a boost to most of the stats of this vehicle. Or you could go with traction system to increase the speed as well as the chassis and hull rotation speed so that you can turn a little bit quicker as well as actually maintain a top speed slightly quicker as well. And the power to weight ratio of this vehicle is 16.66, which, considering that the tank is supposed to be a slower kind of tank destroyer or a tank destroyer that has a little bit more armor, this is actually pretty decent, and so you should be able to get up to 44 kilometers an hour pretty easily. So that is potentially an option that you can go for. Health wise, it's up there with some of the higher health of the kind of tier 8 tank destroyers, but yet again, nothing exceptional. Think of this almost like a Scorpion G, but with a actual turret that isn't a turret and actually gets armor. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one in terms of how it plays, but the kind of principles are the same, whereby the gun plays very much similar, but you get that increased bit of damage and you get some amazing HE rounds with 90 penetration and 630 damage. But with that all out of the way, I think it's time now to take a look at what this thing can actually do in the game, because it's all well and good looking at the stats, but does it transfer into the game? And at the end of it, do I think this tank is actually worth your time and worth time playing it as well? And so what better way to actually test out this tank than to play it on one of the new returning maps that has come out, which is Live Oaks. Now, Live Oaks has been in the game for a very, very long time, but then got removed, and then we have just recently, with the new patch, actually received it back into the game, which is a brilliant thing. I think this map is actually quite a good one that features a lot of different things that you can do, and plays quite well regardless of the tank class that you actually get for the game. Maybe light tanks struggle a little bit more on this map, but all of the other classes are pretty decent and can certainly play quite well on this map. But even light tanks can have some exceptional games as long as you don't just YOLO in at the beginning of the game. There are no light tanks in this one. We are playing as a bottom tier in a tier 10 game, obviously. And with that being said, we're going to see whether or not we can actually deal a bit of damage. So, one thing that you do need to know is never go over the tracks where I'm at right now. If you go further over, you're going to end up taking a lot of hits, and if you get spotted there, you're basically gone and you should be removed pretty quickly. But you can see here we found ourselves a little MBTB, which with the 290mm of premium pen is no match for the Kari. So a little 1000 damage within the first couple of seconds, or well, first minute and a half of the game, I should really say. And with that being said, we can start to push into a different position, or alternatively ram into the side of Mongoose in his Sturm Tiger P. Oh dear, an absolute nightmare there. I apologise if you are indeed Mongoose, but either way we can push now over to the position over here. Now, one thing that is great about this position over here, provided that you don't get YOLO'd by the enemy team, but I'm confident that that isn't going to happen because there is 3 of our tanks down in the dip directly in front of me. So at this point, it's a little bit risky to do what I'm doing right now, but we want a free shot of damage, so we do exactly that, and there goes a little chunky hit off of the G-Saw, so we're up to 1500. And it's quite easy to actually get damage in this tank. You just need to make sure that sometimes you do push and sometimes you try new things, trying out kind of different spots and trying to use the 7 degrees of gun depression. Now here I'm very careful as to kind of expose myself as we go up on the ridgeline, because what I don't want to happen is to crest and get hit by a Ruthless for over 1000 damage, and I certainly don't want to get clipped out by any potential Waffle Panzer 4 or Waffle E100s that are at the back who are in this game. So we're kind of staying a little bit more passive at this point in the game, and we want to find a position where we can get hold down, or at least expose as little as the top of our tank as we can, so there's less chance of us actually getting hit. So what do we do here? Well, we go further over to the left. This means that I can hopefully get some shots into both the Ruthless and the 257. We bounce off of the 257, which is just about right, but we do find ourselves a nice little Waffle E100 who's decided that he's coming out. Now I go for a tracking shot on the Waffle, hoping that we'll get some assistance on this guy, but unfortunately only a minuscule amount actually gets given to us, and so now we put one more into him, putting a nice round into the top of the turret. We could have loaded the HE, but I wasn't entirely confident that we wouldn't actually have to fight someone else. So we put one into the Sturm Tiger there. We bounce one off of the GSAW 1008. He of course knows that if he fires blind he can hit us, which means that he's at least got some level of competency with this game, and there you go, we finish off the Sturm Tiger P in what has been so far a pretty easy matchup where we've picked up 3000 damage. And yeah, that is a really nice feeling when it makes it look so easy, this tank. And I had a ton of fun playing it as well, even if we didn't have a huge amount of amazing results with it. I played about 6 games. Some of them we got so literally unlucky, like genuinely a ghost shell, which I'll be doing a video on, which will be interesting because I literally never thought that they were real, but when I slowed down the footage of the actual round, you'll see it literally go through a vehicle and not do any damage. So I don't know whether it's maybe a bug that's been introduced with the latest patch or something, or maybe a bug with the car and its round tracer that shows. But either way, yeah, it definitely felt annoying to actually be in that situation. So at this point, it's just a case of trying to find out where the rest of the team are. It looks like we're going to win this pretty easily. I find myself a little GWE100, which we break the cart here to be able to knock it down, and that allows us a shot to go through the cart instead of having to go all the way around to try and get a shot on him. And hopefully it hits. Yes, it does. 501. Nice. And then we find ourselves a little Object 268 who's out in the field, but can't quite get a shot on him, so we've now basically got to wait for him to basically appear. We almost fall off the train tracks, which, trust me, you don't want to do. I've had bad news with either bridges or railway tracks on this game. And then of course we managed to miss the Object 268 here. Maybe should have led that one a little bit more. And yeah, hopefully we can get one more into this guy before he's gone. We do indeed get one more, and we pick up over 4000 damage with 300 assistance in what seems like a pretty easy game in this vehicle. The Kari definitely feels like quite a competitive tank if you use it in more of a supporting role. It's definitely not a brawler, but it is very strong in the game, and we pick up 692,000 silver with the operation that we've got right now, which gives you ×5 silver in your first win of the day when you complete a series of operations, which is amazing because we need the silver as much as possible to purchase all of the new tanks and all of the equipment that goes alongside it. But other than that, hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, then make sure to like it. And my overall opinion of the Kari is probably in the region of about a 7.5 out of 10. And it feels very decent. It's competitive. Is it overpowered? No. Is it in a good balanced place? Absolutely. I think it is a decent tank and a brilliant reward for the season. So if you want to check out some of the other season pass rewards, including the TS5, which is the tier 8 premium tank destroyer from the American line, then go and check out this video on screen. But if you want to see what actually came out with this update, I'll leave the video to the news article on the right hand side. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.